Last night, Cincinnati led it 21-7 early in the third quarter and entered the fourth with a 21-14 lead. Baltimore outscored the Bengals 21-13 in the fourth. Baltimore went ahead with 1:49 remaining on a 5-yard touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson to Rashad Bateman. Then with 38 seconds left, Joe Burrow connected on a 5-yard touchdown pass to Jamar Chase to pull the Bengals within one. They went for a 2-point conversion that was no good. Both Jackson and Burrow finished the game with 4 touchdown passes. Burrow 428 passing yards to Jackson's 290. Jamar Chase had 3 touchdown grabs for the Bengals, who dropped to 4-6 overall. Baltimore 7-3 with the win. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
If you're not planning to come into Macy's this week, you're missing out because our Friends and Family sale is happening now. What does that mean? It means when you use your coupon or Macy's card, you can take an extra 30% off, just like Friends and Family can. That's 30% off the latest trends, 30% off new arrivals, 30% off the best brands. It's just this week. It's just what you've been waiting for, and it's only at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
The 90s called. They said the Gordita Supreme is so back in the new $7 Lux Cravings box from Taco Bell. It's all looking fresh to death with the pillowy 90s Gordita Supreme alongside the beefy 5-layer burrito, double stacked taco, chips with nacho cheese sauce, and medium drink. All for just $7. It's your wallet's favorite cheesy crunchy combo here for a limited time. Grab yours and relive the decades only at Taco Bell. At participating Taco Bell stores for a limited time only while supplies last. Contact store for price and participation which varies. Drinks and speeds freezes. Tax extra.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
It's a Football Friday live right here on FFC. That's Football Full Circle. It's a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. He is the bad man. That is Joseph Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. We get you set for a football weekend by looking back on the start of the second half of the 2024 NFL season in week number 10. A masterful Thursday night football game. Another instant classic between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. What it means for both the rest of the way and our main takeaways from Thursday night to kick off the second half of the campaign this year in the NFL in just a few moments. We'll preview every game, all 12, on the NFL Week 10 Sunday slate to start the second half of this season. And as you can see behind Joseph Lisi, it's almost nighttime in Baton Rouge, Death Valley, Tiger Stadium, under the lights. A huge top 15 tilt between LSU and Alabama tomorrow. A significant Saturday in the SEC. A preview of the Week 11 college football schedule. All of that, Joe, in this next hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of NFL and college action. We have that battle in Baton Rouge, 7:30 kick. We also have a marquee battle in the SEC, Georgia and Ole Miss. That will play out. That will determine potentially SEC championship odds, national championship odds, and college football playoff odds. And if last night was a prelude of what to expect in terms of NFL action, week number 10, unbelievable game that went right down to the wire. We saw Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase step up like it was 2019, and they were playing, I don't know, you tell me, Clemson, Ole Miss, anybody, Alabama, any team that they boat raced back about 5 or 6 years ago is an amazing effort. Unfortunately, Ben, they lost the game, and that's the biggest factor that and takeaway that you have to look at.
Yeah, there will be so many reactions, Joe. The Bengals kept it tight with the Ravens the entirety of the game. In fact, not even tight, had a 2-touchdown lead midway through the third quarter. When you look at the final score and Baltimore winning 35-34, sure, Cincy does cover against perhaps the best team in the AFC on the road on a short week as a 5.5-point underdog. Sure, the offense was great on both sides for both quarterbacks, for both teams. 69 nice combined points on a short week Thursday night game, sailing over even a lofty total of 52.5. But I do believe, Joe, the Bengals will look back on this game And the first time they got the Ravens this year in week number 5, both as squandered opportunities that might cost them a playoff berth. We'll go big picture in just a moment. Now to the game. The Ravens win an instant classic 35-34. Baltimore down by 2 touchdowns midway through the third quarter on the final 4 offensive possessions of the second half for the Flock. Lamar Jackson leads a touchdown drive on all 4. 21 unanswered for Baltimore to take a lead in the fourth quarter. The final 4 full offensive possessions for either team. 2 for Cincy, 2 for Baltimore. Both teams score on each one. And ultimately, Joe, after the Bengals got it to a 1-point margin, 35-34 in the final minute of regulation, Zach Taylor makes the call. Cincy goes for 2, goes for the win. Unable to complete a pass to Tanner Hudson on the goal line. Baltimore outlasts Cincinnati 35-34.
Yeah, I mean, again, a back and forth affair. The biggest thing that I looked at is, in both meetings against Baltimore, Cincinnati had a double-digit lead, in the game and surrendered that, right? So from a defensive perspective, they couldn't close it out. We know how dynamic the offense has been. Joe Burrow with a 400-yard performance, Jamar Chase 250-plus, and yet they still, from a defensive perspective, couldn't contain Lamar Jackson in that offense enough to get the W. So, when you look at this team overall, 4-6 right now, right? That's where they're at.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
It's Joe Burrow, it's Jamar Chase. As long as they're healthy, they have to win out. I mean, they can win 7 straight, but it's going to be very difficult. And that defense is nowhere near where it's been in years past in terms of that unit. So that's why I would sell them the rest of the way.
Yeah, Joe, it's a great point. That Cincinnati defense has been at points this year atrocious and currently is atrocious. I also think it factored into the decision by Zach Taylor and that Bengals coaching staff to go for 2 because they were not and could not stop Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense in the second half. They just couldn't. Again, we'll talk about Cincinnati coughing up what was a golden opportunity to win a crucial divisional road game, but outside of the division, just needing to stack up wins to get to a winning record, to have a chance of being an AFC wildcard team in just a minute. But, Joe, when you think about what the Bengals defensively have been with Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator, it's been a defense that often gets better throughout the year and in the course of a game. In fact, they regressed yesterday. And it's tough competition for both defenses. I think there's some flaws with the Ravens as well that will only be further exploited with an injury perhaps to Kyle Hamilton. But, Joe, it's tough competition on the other side, right? You got Joe Burrow throwing for 428 yards and 4 touchdowns. You have Lamar Jackson throwing for 290 and 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry found pay dirt as well. You've got Jamar Chase making more NFL history last night, 11 grabs, 264 yards, and 3 receiving scores to become the first player in the history of the National Football League to have multiple career games of 250-plus yards and multiple receiving touchdowns. He's only 3.5 years into his NFL career, and yet it comes ultimately in a defeat. Joe, Lamar Jackson is now the MVP favorite in the NFL once again at plus 170. And maybe voter fatigue keeps him from winning the award for a second consecutive year, third time in the last 6 NFL seasons. But it might just be voter fatigue because he is playing to that MVP caliber level we know Lamar Jackson can.
Yeah, and the passing statistics are there, right? They weren't really there last year. They were more of a run-heavy offense, but now you see those playmakers coming on. Mark Andrews got involved with 68 yards. Rashad Bateman with big plays throughout the game from the start. Had the touchdown catch. There's multiple weapons outside just Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and that's why they are a complete offense. And even prior to the game against Cleveland, I thought they were the best team in the NFL, hitting on all cylinders, right? They had won 5 straight, but obviously we saw what happened with Detroit, the loss in Cleveland, but they're right back on track. I mean, again, they started slow, but they found a way. And at the end of the day, as long as that offense is healthy, who can't they play with? Kansas City, Detroit, Philly, you name all the best teams in the NFL right now. The Ravens can go toe-to-toe with them, including the Bills that they beat earlier in the year. So They're deserving, and Lamar is deserving right now to be one of the MVP frontrunners. And like you said, he's frontrunner on the board, but obviously there's a long season ahead of us.
Baltimore, in their 7 wins this year, Derrick Henry has had at least 92 yards. Not last night, but still found pay dirt for the 10th game in a row. Every game this year, he's got 14 total touchdowns this season. And Lamar Jackson will be remembered not only for what his arm did last night, but the scamper on the sideline in the third quarter to set up that touchdown, and the Ravens taking advantage of a Chase Brown fumble. But, Joe, if there are a few blemishes to the Flock's resume this year, it would be that pass defense that gave up 428 last night and was already the worst passing defense in the NFL entering, allowing nearly 281 yards per game. And I guess the fact that Baltimore has now been a 5.5-point favorite or greater 5 times this year, it is just 3-2 straight up and now 2-3 against the spread. But again, the Ravens have the second best price to win the AFC, just about $1 behind the Chiefs. They are certainly on that pantheon, and I do believe the Ravens will have the opportunity to change the narrative around the lack of success this organization has had with Lamar Jackson as its starting quarterback in playoff games. Joe, we'll talk about the Bengals up next, and then we'll dive through, starting our breakdown of the entirety of the Sunday slate here on FSC.
Don't look like an idiot at work. Know your stuff. Football and everything else.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The Federal Reserve cut its key interest rate Thursday by 1/4 point in response to the steady decline in the once-high inflation that had angered Americans and helped drive Donald Trump's presidential election victory this week. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. The rate cut follows a large half-point reduction in September, and it reflects the Fed's renewed focus on supporting the job market as well as fighting inflation, which now barely exceeds the central bank's 2% target. Chair Jerome Powell said that in the near term, the election will have no effects on the Fed's policymaking decisions. Republican David McCormick has won Pennsylvania's pivotal U.S. Senate seat as he beat 3-term Democratic Senator Bob Casey in Tuesday's election. The victory pads Republicans' majority in the Senate, which they wrestled away from Democratic control this week and clocked in as the nation's second most expensive race while playing out alongside the presidential contest in the nation's premier battleground state. The 59-year-old recaptured a GOP seat in Pennsylvania after Republicans lost one in 2022. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash.
Every day, Cintas service reps help businesses get ready for the workday. They provide freshly laundered workwear delivered every week. Mats, mops, restroom and cleaning supplies. First aid and safety products to help your employees stay safe. They even test and inspect fire extinguishers and emergency lights. Cintas helps keep your business running smoothly. See what Cintas can do for you. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, because you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak hot. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Fall is almost here.
It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
So the Bengals cover on Thursday night to kick off the second half of the NFL season and week number 10. But ultimately, Joe, it wasn't a game where they stayed close in a game they probably weren't going to have. They had a 21-7 lead midway through the third quarter. A costly fumble from the second-year running back in Chase Brown quickly leads to a Baltimore touchdown that started 21 unanswered points for the Ravens. The Bengals are going to look back on this season in many different spots on opportunities squashed and squandered. Of course, week number 1, losing to the Patriots outright at home is a touchdown favorite, sure. But, Joe, they might focus on both of these games against Baltimore. In week 5, they had a late lead in the fourth quarter. Joe Burrow had already thrown 5 touchdown passes and nearly 350 yards, was driving Cincinnati into Baltimore territory. He throws an untimely pick. The Ravens drive the length of the field. Justin Tucker takes a game-tying field goal, sends it into overtime. The Bengals mess up a snap on a potential game go-ahead field goal, not a game-winning, but would have put them in front in overtime. They miss. The Ravens come down. Derrick Henry breaks off a long run, and Justin Tucker kicks that game winner. And then last night, up by 2 touchdowns, deep into the second half, Chase Brown fumbles, and a Bengals offense was continuing to light it up, but was stalled there, and a Bengals defense could not get a single stop against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Joe, if Cincinnati misses out on the postseason, they will look back on these 2 games against the Ravens, this AFC North rivalry. Great games to watch and follow. Not so great if you're a Bengals fan or backer.
No, and you're right. When you're close, you should be able to at least get one of those 2 games. And I'll throw 2 other games on there. I mean, the game in Arrowhead, they had the Chiefs dead and buried,
For sure.
But the pass interference call. And how about week 1 to New England, just coming out flat, taking the Patriots for granted and losing 16-10 with 163 yards out of Joe Burrow and that offense? It's pathetic and uncalled for. I mean, that's really where the season was lost. Again, Baltimore is one of the best teams, not just in the AFC, in all of the NFL for that matter. And Lamar's playing at an elite level. He's no longer just, an RPO quarterback. He's making plays in the pocket. He has playmakers. They started to incorporate Deontay Johnson into that offense last night. And as long as Derrick Henry is healthy, I mean, you have to worry about Baltimore in terms of every level of that defense if you're an opposing, secondary and front seven. So, it's not going to stop. So here's the thing. How do you, if you're Cincinnati, try and get back in the mix? There's only one answer. Win out. 7 wins. You got to be 11-6, 10-7 at the very least, 10-7 at the worst to potentially sneak into the playoffs. And that's a very tough ask with their backs against the wall right now.
So yes and no, right? There was limited margin of error. Slim to none, and Slim is walking out that door halfway right now as you are 4-6 and 2 games below 500 past the midway point of your season. And I would have agreed, Joe, double-digit wins, bare minimum, maybe even 11 to feel secure about a playoff spot in the AFC entering the year. But it's not that AFC that we expected. There are only 7 teams here at the halfway point that are above 500, and 2 of the 7 are the Broncos and the Chargers, where we would expect some regression to come back ever so slightly. The Steelers are 6-2. They have the most difficult schedule the remainder of this season. All to say, again, the Bengals cannot lose more than 2 games and even think about the playoffs. But I do believe they will be in the hunt, Joe, for most of November and into December. Playoff price is not back up yet on the FanDuel Sportsbook, but Cincinnati was minus 114 to make the postseason entering last night. That, of course, takes a hit, but the Bengals' updated win total is 8.5. They would have to win 5 of their final 7 to go over that number. That's bare minimum. I think 6 of 7, Joe, and they get the 10 wins, Cincy might have a chance. But again, you look back on last night, and you're squandering generational and historic offensive play from Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I would not necessarily trust the Bengals to win 5 of 7 or 6 of 7 or win out with a defense that has glaring issues right now. All right, Lacey Guy, as you said to start off the show, we can only hope that what we saw on Thursday night to kick week number 10 is a prelude to the second half of the season and the Sunday slate. 12 games on Sunday. Let's break them down, and we go in order. And I'm sorry to say that we go in order because the first game of the day is international over in Munich. It's the Giants and the Panthers at 40.5. Listen, if we're trying to sell the best version of football in the National Football League abroad, sorry to Germany, this ain't that.
No, it's not. And you have 2 quarterbacks searching for answers in Daniel Jones and Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young played well enough to get the victory. Chuba Hubbard did score. The ground attack got going. We saw life out of the Carolina Panthers against a gutless New Orleans Saints team led to Dennis Allen being fired. They lost 7 straight.
Right.
Here's the thing. I mean, again, you have to make an assessment whether you want to stick with Bryce Young and whether he can grasp it enough to build your team around in terms of the future. And for the New York Giants, I mean, listen, Brian Daboll, we said it. He overexceeded in year number 1. That probably was the worst decision and accolade for this team because now that sets them back potentially 2 or 3 more seasons if they have to move on from him. I don't know what you do, but I say open it up. I mean, both of these teams have nothing to lose in terms of opening up the offense. Why not showcase your talent and let's see if we can get through the total on Saturday morning.
Yeah, we'll see. 40.5. It feels like it's going to be an ugly game. Chuba Hubbard was paid earlier this week. 65.5 is his rushing yards prop. It's not a lot, and the Giants have struggled against even decent rushing attacks. Not calling Carolina that necessarily, but you would think the guy that just got a big paycheck would want to eat on the ground. Joe, the Giants have been an underdog in 24 consecutive games. This will be their first time as a favorite since week number 2 of last year. Panthers have only ever been an underdog since Bryce Young was drafted. They're now 6-18-2 against the spread. My recommendation for the Munich start to Sunday, sleep in. Have a nice breakfast. You don't need to watch football. The rest of the Sunday slate, though, it's great. We break it down next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
Not only will Tom Dempsey hits this one, he's got a very slight wind at his back. He'll set a National Football League record in addition to winning the game.
1970, Tom Dempsey of the Saints kicks a then NFL record 63-yard field goal.
It's good! I don't believe it! The field goal attempt was good from 63 yards away!
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Magic tricks like pulling a rabbit out of a hat or sawing a person in half are typically visual. Psychologists at the University of Plymouth think magic is based on how the brain processes visual versus auditory information, so they've started a competition to create magic tricks for the visually impaired based only on sound. This is a shepherd tone. It fools the brain into hearing an endlessly rising pitch, but it's not magic. Their goal, create a new category of magical illusion that you don't have to see. And yes, here's my entry.
I have just made a minute of your life disappear.
Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
You can have all the burner accounts that you and everybody likes to do. You can tweet me at Lisi, you suck. The other thing, we're going to kick you in the stones. Guess what? I'm taking Michigan. Not you, me. Listen, look at my lips. Michigan. I'm taking the Wolverines.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, we break down every game on the NFL Sunday slate for week number 10. 11 more to go, Joe. After the Munich opener to the day, we head to Chicago. The Bears, a 6.5-point home favorite against the Patriots. Total 38.5. Not good vibes around this Chicago team based on the last 2 weeks. But returning home to the Windy City, Joe Lisi, they're a perfect 3-0 this year in Soldier Field, favored in all 3, covering in all 3. Can they get back on track hosting the Patriots on Sunday?
I think they can. I mean, I want to take the Patriots plus the 6.5. Just can't do it with Drake May, and I understand it's rookie quarterbacks, but again, the 38.5 is where I would look. I lean to the under. Again, what are you going to get? I think Eberflus will go back to basics. Short to intermediate throws, run the football with Roshan Johnson and DeAndre Swift, and try to force mistakes against Drake May. The way that offense played against Arizona, I think they go more conservative. They need a W more than anything after back-to-back weeks. Where's that locker room? It's a no play for me, but I can only look Chicago here, Ben.
Yeah, I think Chicago wins big. I think Chicago gets back in the win column. The only thing that would scare you is, are they believing in Matt Eberflus anymore? Answer to that is probably no. Do they have enough belief to still win a football game? I think, yes, DeAndre Swift over 93.5 rushing plus receiving yards is a bet I like for that one. Next up, Joe, Indianapolis at home against Buffalo. The Colts believe they're a playoff team with Joe Flacco under center. They did not show that on Sunday night in Minnesota against the Vikings. Buffalo has now won 4 straight games. They're laying 3.5, total 47 and a hook. What do you like in Indy on Sunday?
I'm going to shock you. The 3.5 is intriguing to me here with Indianapolis. And it's not a knock on Josh Allen or Buffalo, but this line smells a little bit. I think this line should be more like 4.5. Seeing how Joe Flacco got abused by Minnesota in that front seven, I just don't see how that line could be 3.5. So something seems up. I'll take a shot with Indianapolis with the points. Do like the over, though, 47.5. Whether you believe Flacco's going to make plays to pull out the victory or not, he's still going to be a turnover machine potentially in this game. And with Josh Allen, I still expect him to eat. Give me the Colts and the over in this matchup.
You know, Lucy, I kind of agree with you. The line does feel very trappy, very fishy, very odd to only see it at 3.5. Also, if you're going to start Joe Flacco, he's got to be better than he was last week, right? 16 of 27 for $179 and an interception. You got to let Flacco rip it. That's what you believe he can do in this Shane Steichen offense. If he's going to go out there and throw an interception in less than $180, just play Anthony Richardson at that point. So let Flacco go. I think we see some points. The Colts did not cover last week in Minneapolis. I thought they might make it a competitive game. Of course, they did not. But Indy was previously entering last week 5-0 ATS as an underdog this year. Joe, line has been working like crazy in Jacksonville because more than likely Trevor Lawrence dealing with an upper body injury is what they're saying in Duval County. Mac Jones is about to start for the Jaguars. It was 4.5 earlier in the week. It's now 6 and a hook in favor of Minnesota. 43.5 is the total in Jacksonville on Sunday. What's the play?
Yeah, I can only look Minnesota. Not a knock on Mac Jones. He moved the football. He played periodically in that game against the Eagles. But the 43.5 is where I'm looking. I know typically we think under for Duval County, an ugly type of game. But why hold back? Minnesota, I think, can move the football. And the way we saw A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith eat in regards to that matchup offensively, I think Sam Darnold, J.J. could have a huge performance, especially when you look at what Jamar Chase did. Those guys are in competition with each other. Give me Minnesota and give me the over.
Yeah, listen, I have to lean with the Vikings in this spot. I don't know what Jacksonville still has left. I think the writing on the wall is there for Doug Peterson. Mac Jones, certainly not your answer. Lisa Guy, we'll get to this game more on the other side of the break, but Kansas City, the lone remaining undefeated team in the NFL at the midway point of this season, now starting the second half. The Chiefs are perfect. They are undefeated. They are 8-0. 7.5-point favorite is Kansas City at home on Sunday against the Denver Broncos. 41.5 is that total. But Lisa Guy, when you think of KC, it hasn't been overwhelmingly impressive this year. Just a average margin of victory of 7 points per game. 6 of the 8 wins decided by just a single score. Will we see more of the same in this AFC West battle on Sunday in Arrowhead? Joe Lisi will tell you on the other side of the break. Plenty more to preview from the Sunday slate in week number 10. It comes your way up next here on SportsGrid Radio.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Thursday Night Football, the Ravens rallied for a 35-34 win over the Bengals in Baltimore last night. Cincinnati led it 21-7 early in the third quarter and entered the fourth with a 21-14 lead. Baltimore outscored the Bengals 21-13 in the fourth. Baltimore went ahead with 1:49 remaining on a 5-yard touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson to Rashad Bateman. Then with 38 seconds left, Joe Burrow connected on a 5-yard touchdown pass to Jamar Chase to pull the Bengals within one. They went for a 2-point conversion that was no good. Both Jackson and Burrow finished the game with 4 touchdown passes. Burrow, 428 passing yards to Jackson's 290. Jamar Chase had 3 touchdown grabs for the Bengals, who dropped to 4-6 overall. Baltimore 7-3 with the win. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Lowe's honors our military community this Veterans Day and every day. To say thank you, verified military members, veterans, and their spouses get 10% off everyday purchases, plus free silver key status with My Lowe's Rewards. It's our way of showing our gratitude to the brave people who have and continue to serve our country. Learn more now at lowes.com/military. 10% discount can't be combined with another offer. Exclusions, terms, and conditions apply. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Wendy's breakfast burrito has an entire breakfast in every bite. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, American cheese, cheese sauce, and sausage or bacon. So the first bite is like fresh cracked American cheese sauce. Bacon. And the second bite is like fresh cracked American cheese sauce. Bacon. And the third bite, you get the idea. The boss of breakfast burritos, gotta be Wendy's.
Participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
Days are getting cooler.
The shadows are getting longer.
You know what that means? It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, we preview every game around the Sunday slate in the National Football League for week number 10. Lisi guy, the Chiefs are perfect. They're undefeated. They're 8-0, but they haven't really been winning big. 6 of the 8 wins decided by just a single score. We're expecting it to be around that margin perhaps on Sunday against the Broncos, who were just blown out last week as a 9.5-point dog in Baltimore by the Ravens. Does KC win big and cover as a 7.5-point home favorite? Could the Broncos keep it within the number and maybe pull off the first upset of the year against KC?
No shot. This is going to look similar to the Ravens and Denver Broncos. This is one of my better bets for the weekend. I really like Kansas City to boat race Denver. Again, it comes down to quarterback play. In order to beat Kansas City, you need to have an elite or an above-average quarterback. And you look at some of the teams that actually covered against KC this year: Joe Burrow, Gardner Minshew, who's a veteran, Baker Mayfield, another veteran, and now we have a rookie in terms of Bo Nix. Granted, Bo Nix coming into his own, but still limited in terms of the passing attack. He's not lighting it up. They're not stretching defenses over the top the way other teams are, and that's going to force, the rushing attack to really dominate, and that goes right into the strength of Kansas City's front seven. So can't back Denver in terms of this matchup. Do not like it in any capacity. Give me Kansas City by double digits.
The Broncos just a dog this year 6 times, but 3-3 against the spread. A 5-4 team who is a perfect 3-0 ATS as a favorite. KC, a favorite of 5.5 points or more 4 times this year. They're just 1-3 against the number. It was against the Chargers, who were really banged up front. Justin Herbert was hobbled. His 2 tackles were out. KC had to score late to win that football game by a touchdown. We'll see if they can win big on Sunday. Joe, the NFC South doesn't look all that great right now outside of the Atlanta Falcons. They're the only team with a winning record. The Falcons stand at 6-3. They have won 5 of their last 6. They have covered in their last 4 wins. They're laying 3.5 on the road in New Orleans against the Saints, who, of course, fired Dennis Allen earlier this week, riding a 7-game losing skid. 46.5 is that total. Can the Saints use the interim bump to maybe spoil the Falcons' trip to the Big Easy?
I think they can. Now, I played against Darren Rizzi in high school. He played at Bergen Catholic. I played at Bosco. High-intensity guy, Rutgers guy. I'm backing Rizzi in terms of this matchup. You know, Carver, my partner at night, says, I knew you were going to back Darren Rizzi. That's it. A little bit of intensity. Utilize the weapons that you have. I think they actually cover. Not sold on Atlanta being this elite team. They could still fall from earth. And give me the Saints with the points, especially after the embarrassment last week to Carolina. I think they get off the bat. They might not win, but I like them to cover.
Special teams coordinator in New Orleans. It's good to turn over responsibilities to that guy as your interim head man, because then you can still coordinate things on the other side. Look at what Jeff Ulbrich is doing with New York. It's difficult to be a coordinator, be invested in the scheme, and still contribute in a high level way. I didn't know that he was a native of Hillsdale, New Jersey, and Joe's former opponent in New Jersey high school football. And Joe Lisi will never speak ill of an Italian head coach, even an interim one, now in the National Football League. The Falcons, though, Joe, 3-0 against the spread on the road this year, including twice in the last month as a road favorite against an NFC South foe. The line says the Saints are going to see the interim bump. I'm not entirely sure. We got news yesterday, Joe, that Kyle Shanahan told reporters Christian McCaffrey is back. They expected to make him his season debut on Sunday in Tampa. The San Francisco 49ers, just 4-4, a favorite in all 8 games, but the short favorites to win the NFC before the year entered their bye last weekend, Joe, at an even 500. Now with McCaffrey back, they're a 6.5-point favorite against the short-handed Buccaneers. What do you like in Tampa?
I'm taking the points with Tampa. Again, 5.5 to 6.5. Everybody going to be betting the 49ers because of McCaffrey. I'll take Tampa at home as a dog. Do like the over 50.5, though. I could see it going over right there. I lean now that we have McCaffrey in there. Give me over the 50 and a hook.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. I think we see some points. The Bucs have been a bad defense as of late, allowing 27 or more in 5 straight. They have lost 4 of those 5 games. They have given up at least 30 points in all 4 losses. And for the Niners, Joe, 4-4 right now. Favorite in all 8 games, of course. They have covered, though, in all 4 wins. They have also played to the over in all 4 wins. They have scored at least 30 points in all 4 wins. And now they add back Christian McCaffrey out of the bye last year. The Niners had started 5-0. They had lost 3 straight. They go into their Week 9 bye, and they hammered another Florida team in Florida, that being Jacksonville last year. And the Jags were not this 2-win version of the Jags, 34-3. I think it's a big offensive day for the 49ers. Really good matchup, Joe, Sunday afternoon. The Commanders at home in Landover host the Pittsburgh Steelers. 44.5 is the total. Washington is 7-2. Pittsburgh is 6-2. The Commanders are a 2.5-point home favorite. What do you like in Landover?
I'm going to lay the 2.5 with Washington, and I know that Mike Williams is in that offense. Do like the over 44.5. I do say if they put like a 25 or a 30-yard number on Mike Williams, I think he blows through that from the props perspective. But I really like Washington from how they're playing. They get Lattimore, Jaden Daniels, and that offense are humming right now. 7-2. They're playing with confidence. They're playing at home, which they've been dominant. Give me Washington under a field goal. Not going to be easy, obviously, but I think this is a statement game, and I'm not sold on Rush. This is his first road start as well, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Washington, Joe, hard to argue the idea that if they win this game and they are favored 2, they're going to cover the number. They have covered in all 7 wins. They have also gone over in 6 of 9 games this year. The Steelers over in 3 straight. The offense has looked good with Russell Wilson. His passing yards prop 216 and a hook. He's had at least 264 in each of his 2 starts. Najee Harris has broken through the century mark in 3 consecutive games. Pittsburgh this year, a dog just twice. They have won outright in both. I actually lean to the Steelers on the road in Landover. Chargers, Titans in Los Angeles on Sunday. Joe, for some reason, there's reports that Will Levis is taking first-team reps back at practice, practicing fully. Good luck, I guess, to the Tennessee Titans on Saturday in L.A. if Will Levis is your starting quarterback. 38.5, Joe, is that number. The Chargers a 7.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I like the Chargers, and they stepped up not just offensively last week. Quentin Johnson with big plays, over 100 yards. Josh Palmer now coming and becoming a secondary option outside of Disley. Still running the football, but Justin Herbert's playing well. And that defense got to Jameis Winston early and often. Whether Will Levis plays or not, is it going to be any different? Can only look Chargers. Do feel the under because I don't know what Tennessee's going to give you from an offensive perspective. Give me the Chargers and the under in this ballgame.
Will Levis has played in 5 games this year. He has thrown an interception in all 5, 7 in total, with multiple lost fumbles as well. I don't know how you could turn it back to him. I understand Mason Rudolph is not the answer. Neither is Levis. LA under in 7 of 8 games this year in 4 of their 5 wins. I expect it to stay under 38.5 as well. Cardinals, Jets out in the desert. A very interesting game, Joe, because here is New York after winning a week ago Thursday in week number 9. Good second half against the Texans. Are the Jets going to win games that we expect them to, as they were a slight 2.5-point home favorite? They're a slight 1.5 and minus 126 money line favorite on the road on Sunday in Glendale, Arizona. But the Cards have won 3 straight in 4 of their last 5. Entering the second half, Arizona is the only team in the NFC West with a winning record above 500. Joe Lisi's thoughts on that game, on the Cowboys and the Eagles on Sunday at the Star, and Sunday Night Football in Houston between the Texans and the Lions. Next.
Yeah, it's getting cooler.
Football weather is here.
Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The Federal Reserve cut its key interest rate Thursday by 1/4 point in response to the steady decline in the once-high inflation that had angered Americans and helped drive Donald Trump's presidential election victory this week. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. The rate cut follows a large half-point reduction in September, and it reflects the Fed's renewed focus on supporting the job market as well as fighting inflation, which now barely exceeds the central bank's 2% target. Chair Jerome Powell said that in the near term, the election will have no effects on the Fed's policymaking decisions. Republican David McCormick has won Pennsylvania's pivotal U.S. Senate seat as he beat 3-term Democratic Senator Bob Casey in Tuesday's election. The victory pads Republicans' majority in the Senate, which they wrestled away from Democratic control this week and clocked in as the nation's second most expensive race while playing out alongside the presidential contest in the nation's premier battleground state. The 59-year-old recaptured a GOP seat in Pennsylvania after Republicans lost one in 2022. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash.
Every day, Cintas service reps help businesses get ready for the workday. They provide freshly laundered workwear delivered every week. Mats, mops, restroom and cleaning supplies. First aid and safety products to help your employees stay safe. They even test and inspect fire extinguishers and emergency lights. Cintas helps keep your business running smoothly. See what Cintas can do for you. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, cause you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak hot. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
3 more games on the NFL Sunday slate to preview, and then we turn our attention to college football in the second Saturday in November. Joe, the Jets, a slight road favorite in Arizona against the Cardinals, who have won 3 straight games. 46.5 is that total. Here are the Jets. Maybe, just maybe, with a small sliver of optimism in a game they now need to win and are expected to at least outright. Will they, Joe, on Sunday in Glendale?
I don't think they do. I think they're going into a very consistent team right now in Arizona. offensively and defensively. Kyler coming into his own. Marvin Harrison starting to step up, and the defense very underrated. Let's not forget, at home, 9 points to Chicago. They held 15 to Justin Herbert in L.A. a couple weeks ago. I like the way they're playing. You want to give me a 1.5 with the home dog? Take a shot, and the more consistent quarterback still is Kyler Murray, I believe, because he can run it, he could throw it, and I believe in Gannon. He's an underrated coach that covers numbers. I do think that the over in this game does come in, and I know typically it's been trending to the under in Arizona lately at home, and they're an under team for the most part in their place, and away from there, they seem to blow through the total. But 46.5, I think, is light. Give me the Cards outright, but I really like the over.
It's interesting, Joe. This is the third game at home this year for the Cardinals where they have played with a spread of 1.5 or less. So basically a pick'em style game. They've won all 3 of those under in the last 2. I'm not going to bet this game. I actually kind of think the Jets win it weirdly. Did they figure something out in the second half last Thursday? I don't know. I would like for the Jets to lose, though, and then we get to laugh at them at 3-7. Cowboys, Eagles. Story of the game, Joe, of course, is Dak Prescott and the severe hamstring injury. He is on the sideline for this one and maybe the rest of this season. The Eagles, riding a 4-game win streak, have covered in 2 of the 4, but never when they have been favored by a touchdown or more, which they are here on the road. I know it's Cooper Rush, but it's a divisional duel. Does Philadelphia win comfortably in Dallas on Sunday?
No. I'm going to take Cooper Rush. I'm going to take a shot with the Cowboys and lean to the under. Ugly type of game.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes.
Do they know?
Yes.
They know.
What? What? Who knows? Yes, they know. What?
They know.
What?
Kevin and Donnie know. Kevin and Donnie know this.
Yeah, they should be happy. I'm taking the Cowboys. Could be a smash special.
Actually, yeah, you like when they're on the other. They like when you're on the other side. What we're referring to here, if you don't watch Pro Football Today or NFL Football In-Game Live Game Day during Monday or Sunday night, or Monday or Thursday night, rather, both Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh, Big Birds backers and fans. And when Joe likes the Eagles, it's actually worse than when he picks against them. So I'm actually not sure they'd be all that upset with you backing the Cowboys as a touchdown underdog. Joe, Dallas 0-3, both straight up and against the spread at home this year. The cover margin is negative 22.7 points per game. I just can't lay 7 with the Eagles here. It feels like it's going to be quirky and weird. Cooper Rush, of course, when he did start for Dak Prescott, had a 4-game win streak back in 2022. CeeDee Lamb expected to play. Michael Parsons expected to return. My favorite bet for this game, Jalen Hurts, plus 105 to hit Pater. 6 rushing scores in the last 3 games. Has scored in 4 of the last 5. If that was the case for anybody not playing the quarterback position, that number would be minus 150 or greater. I like Jalen Hurts to hit Pater. Joe, if Thursday night between the Ravens and the Bengals was an instant classic that we hope is a prelude to everything in Sunday and, of course, the rest of this year, we got to hope Sunday night tracks as well. The Lions, 3.5-point road favorite in Houston for Sunday Night Football, taking on the Texans. Total 48.5. Joe, we've debated if Baltimore is the best team in the AFC or if that's the lone undefeated team remaining. Kansas City, that being the Chiefs. Maybe the debate right now is, can anybody catch the Lions as the best team in the NFL? Because the Lions look like the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, they do, but I'm going to go against it with C.J. Stroud in Houston getting abused on primetime by the Jets coming back home, having potentially the hottest team in the NFL in the Detroit Lions and a hot quarterback in Jared Goff. I think this game sails through the total fast track, but give me C.J. Stroud and the Texans to make a statement. I think he chucks it all over the yard, and we have this game going down to the final possession, but Texans outright over the Lions.
It's been difficult, Joe, because 2 years ago, the Texans were an underdog a ton, or last year they were an underdog a ton with C.J. Stroud in his rookie year. This year, the Texans have only been an underdog twice last week against the Jets, did not cover, lost to Green Bay by 2, but did end up covering as a 3-point dog. The Texans have actually gone under in 7 of 9 games this year. I'm just not sure where they get the offense with how shorthanded they are. They were hoping Nico Collins, with the additional rest of playing last week on a Thursday, might be back. He hasn't really participated in practice this week. The Lions have covered in all 7 wins this year. They're 44-18 against the spread with Dan Campbell as the head man in the Motor City. I think it happens again on Sunday. All right, Lisa guy, let's quickly transition to college football, and of course we'll have more in our final segment. But behind you, it almost looks like the sun is starting to set inside Tiger Stadium. It's Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's Death Valley, and it's a top 15 tilt. Number 11, Alabama in the CFP rankings. Number 15, LSU in those same rankings. On Saturday night inside Tiger Stadium, the Bayou Bengals, a home underdog under the lights in Death Valley, getting 2.5 points, total 58.5. Lisa guy with a live tiger on the sidelines. Who's going to be the scaredy cat on Saturday?
No, I think LSU wins outright. As long as it's a fast track, and I expect it to be, I think Nussmeier and that offense will lead. I believe more in Brian Kelly coming out of a bye week, and I think that defense will regroup after getting abused by Marcel Reed. They dominate.
Yeah, listen, I think it's hard to pick against LSU in a night game inside Tiger Stadium, right? They're a perfect 12-0 in such instances with Brian Kelly, 3-1 straight up and ATS as a home underdog. We'll have more from a significant Saturday in the SEC and Week 11 in CFB next.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall.
The World Series is on its way.
And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. We get you set for Week 11 in college football. Behind Joe Lisi, Baton Rouge at night will be one of the great stages of this second Saturday in November. Joe likes LSU as the home underdog. Hard to knock it. Lisi guy, they have a 79% win percentage. Does LSU in home night games since 1960. it's hard to beat them inside Tiger Stadium when the sun sets. And speaking of Tiger Stadium, it will live up to that. Apparently, Louisiana's governor is flying in or somehow acquiring a live tiger that is not Mike the Tiger, who lives on campus in Baton Rouge, to bring to the sideline. There is no sport better than college football. I will just say that. Lisa Guy, how do you feel about points in LSU, Alabama? I lean over because I think LSU's defense, which still struggles at times with mobile quarterbacks like we saw against Marcel Reed, will have its issues against Jalen Milroe, who had more than 100 yards on the ground against LSU a season ago. But I do think LSU will be able to get to an Alabama defense that did shut out Missouri and mostly Drew Pine, but it allowed at least 24 points in each of its first 4 SEC games. What do you think about points on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium?
I mean, it's possible. Again, we don't know the effects of wind and rain potentially. This hurricane, it says it's going to the Gulf of Mexico. Who knows? Yeah. It's going to go to the left. But I still,
what's the Doppler
I like LSU. Well, the Doppler. I read the Doppler. I got spaghetti models everywhere. I'll just say this. That's a huge number. That is a huge number for a big game with playoff implications, right? So it's almost like a playoff game in November. I think teams could be a little, not tight, but played a little conservative early on, and as this game progresses, I don't know if we're going to get into the high 50s. I'm inclined to take the under, but again, it wouldn't shock me if we blow through this total just because of the quarterback play that we have with Jalen Milroe and Garrett Nussmeier. Nussmeier averaging 337 through the air.
Less than 3-point spread in favor of another road SEC team on Saturday. Georgia heads to the Grove to take on Ole Miss. The Bulldogs just a 2.5-point favorite against the Runnin' Rebs. Total at 55 and a hook. Lisa Guy, which way do you lean? Are you going to follow your LSU thought and take the home underdog with the short amount of points?
The spread is telling me Ole Miss, but I just can't do it. Again, I watched this game play out last year. Physicality, offense and defensive lines. I still believe in Georgia. The quarterback advantage might be Jackson Dart. He's playing more consistent right now than Carson Beck. This is probably a no play for me, but I can only look to Georgia in terms of the side. I might jump in from an in-game perspective, but pre-kick, I probably won't take it. It's Bulldogs or bust.
2 really good defenses, by the way, I think will be on display. Georgia improving, and I think they would have been good against DJ Lagway anyway last week, except when Lagway left, the Gators did leave 10-3. But Ole Miss has been a great defensive juggernaut the last year, and really plus 14 of 22 games since last year for the Red and Rebs. Under 21 ranked opponents for Georgia and Kirby Smart since the start of 2021. 13 of those 21 staying under the number. Carson Beck struggling. 10 touchdowns to 11 interceptions in 6 SEC games. 3 interceptions in all 3 SEC games that have featured a 14.5-point spread or less. Not good. That is for sure. Lisa Guy, Indiana remains unbeaten. They take on Michigan at home in Bloomington on Saturday. It's the first time IU has been 9-0 in program history. It's the first time since 1968 the Hoosiers are favored to beat the Wolverines in a football game. And it's not just a point or 3 or 7. It's 14.5. Does Indiana remain perfect on Saturday, and rather comfortably so?
I don't know. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. They've lost 27 of the last 28 games against the Michigan Wolverines dating back to 1988. Only game they won was with Michael Penix in the COVID year. They are the better team. They have the better quarterback, certainly the better statistical defense. But 14.5 in terms of this matchup for Michigan, way too many points. Wolverines are bust for me.
Some have said that is the crypto bump it up play of the lock of the week of the play of the year for Joe Lisi. I guess we'll see. We will see you on College Football Today, tomorrow on a Saturday on SportsGrid. Football Full Circle returns on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.